Welcome back to the Ken Matthews Report. It's my pleasure to have Christie Hutcherson, the founder and president of Women Fighting for America, and thank God somebody is. On the border internationally, Christie is back on the show. It's Independence Day weekend, and I thought it would be so perfect to have you on the show because you've been down on the border and you're paying attention to what's happening to our country, both internally and externally, strategically. And welcome back to the show because there's so much to talk about. And to me, this Independence Day is surreal. I can't believe we're being invaded and everybody's cooking out and they're having a barbecue and they're going to the beach and we're being invaded. Am I wrong?
And we should have the flags upside down. We should be flying our black flags, quite frankly. Our country is in massive distress. And a lot of the things that are going on are what I consider distractionary fires to keep the American people from understanding how serious of a time that we live in, almost reminiscent of that 1775 moment.
Yes. It's crazy. The thing that's most frustrating for me, and Chrissy and I have talked about this before, is the level of denial that goes along with all the proof. We see the proof every day. We see the numbers. We see the illegal foreign nationals pouring in. We see, we're going to talk about this, the bases being built in places where they shouldn't be, and the global manipulation of things that are happening. And I just don't understand what it's going to take to get American citizens awake to this. How many illegal foreign nationals do you think are in our country right now, give or take?
Over
Roughly
30, over 35 million under the Biden, just in the last 4 years.
35 million total. Now,
That's
how do
that. And
we?
by the way, I'm not the only one who comes to this conclusion. You have very educated listeners out there. When I put something out there, I don't take my words lightly.
Mhm.
This is 4 years of me analyzing everything, interviewing countless Border Patrol agents, U.S. Marshals, private ranchers, looking at camera systems, sheriff's departments across the country, not just on the southern border. One of the things that really frustrates me is that we hone in so much on saying southern border.
Mm.
We need to broaden this. It is the whole borders of the United States of America, and we have 5 borders. We have an east, west, north, south, and an aerial border. Biden has also been flying in thousands upon thousands of illegals from outside of the country in the cover of darkness in many ways to come into the United States. So when you look at the actual true data, you look at the real got-away numbers, we have come to the conclusion, not just myself, but a lot of other individuals who work the border, the real numbers. And also, I've been in Mexico, the federales and stuff. They have a really good pulse on how many people are coming up through their borders.
Right.
It's over 30. We estimate between 30 to over 35 million who really have entered the United States under Biden's presidency.
And even if it was 1% of that population that was bad, and we know it's more, but let's be safe so no one gets offended, right? Let's say only 1% of 35 million decide to go very, very rogue and very bad on our country and our cities. How do we even push back on that with a degraded military, demoralized law enforcement, and fragmented border patrol? How do we push back?
Maybe the citizens, the private citizens. I always say I love the founding fathers. They were incredible. They were so far beyond their time. And I think about even George Washington when he penned about all men were created equal. You know, People have to understand the time that was, but he had the forethought in his Christianity and his beliefs of love of God and that all men were created equal. He knew that someday there was going to be a path paved, that it didn't matter the color of your skin or anything about you, that he believed that we are all created equally in the eyes of God. And so even with the Constitution, they gave us this beautiful roadmap. President Lincoln, in his address, I believe it was 1861, he laid it out. It is revolutionary. It is our duty to cause a revolution if our government is rogue and no longer upholding the Constitution of the land. And so it is the American people that are going to come to the defense of this great nation and this great country.
Do you think that the Biden regime is aware of what they're creating? Because I've never heard more people we don't trust the government anymore. We're fed up. And obviously, I mean, just you're like, Women Fighting for America and all these different organizations that are actually hands-on, eyes-on with what's going on because our government is delinquent. Do you think Biden knows that there's this thing building? I think they're going to try to rename it. They're going to try to say it's bad. But I think there are people that are saying, like yourself, the only way we get out of this is if we do it ourselves, and it's going to be messy and it's going to be dirty. Is it not? I mean, I just don't see how it gets better before it gets worse. I think things have to get worse before they improve. Do they not?
Well, it definitely is. But I want the listeners to understand something about Biden and the Biden administration. Biden right now, he is not playing obviously with a full deck of upstairs, but make no mistake, Biden has been part of this insider globalist agenda for over 30 years. He's been in office for what, 48 years? And so he has been compromised for decades. So he's fully aware of the plans. He's fully aware of everything that's taking place up until now, where his mind and his dementia has kicked in.
Right.
However, he's not running the operation. Obama said it beautifully, and he said it to the world, because the evil dark has to always expose themselves, and they're narcissists, so they're arrogant. So this globalist allegiance, these members, they want to say what they're doing because it's a game to them. This is a chessboard, right? The world is a chessboard.
Right.
So Obama sat on an interview, and he said, when he was asked about a third term, he said, quote unquote, if I could sit in a basement with an earpiece in and conduct the presidency from my basement with an earpiece, that would make me basically really, really happy. That's exactly what's happening. That's what's been happening for the last 4 years. The Obama administration, along with the Muslim Brotherhood and China and all of these really horrible enemies of the United States.
True enemies, yes.
True enemies have had the ear and running. If you look at the policies, I mean, all you have to do, I don't care if you're a Republican, Democrat, or an independent. And I'm going to tell everybody out there, I am registered Republican, but make no mistake, the Republican Party are 90% at fault for everything.
Oh yeah, they've been letting us down through this. Most of this stuff couldn't even have gotten this level of traction since 2016 if the Republicans didn't buy into it. The Republicans had an opportunity under Trump to do all these things they said they were going to do. They didn't do. Then they threw Trump under the bus. And now they're going along with Biden because I think too many people in the GOP are looking at their careers. They should be fighting. They should be risking their careers every day. But instead, they're too worried about the election cycle. What you brought up about Obama is so true, because I don't think people realize he has 5 homes, and one of his homes is within walking distance of the White House. Now, how many presidents went back to Washington and bought a house? I think he's the only one. I don't think anybody goes back to that hellhole and says, honey, let's buy another house so I can walk to the White House if I'd like. And I think people forget it really is the Biden administration. And another example of it, to your point, all this trans policy comes right out of Obama's playbook. I mean, Biden didn't do that stuff 30 years ago when he was a senator. He couldn't care less about the LGBT community. This is Obama. Obama's like a kid in a candy store. He's got a dumb puppet. He's got a bunch of people that still worship him, and he can stay in the shadows and have all this crazy, crazy stuff, this Title IX stuff, this stuff in the military. And God help us if Kamala's president even for a month this year.
Well, all of that LGBTQ, the race baiting and all that, it's what we call syntops in the military world. Syntops is basically, it's also psychological warfare, but it's social media intelligence warfare
Yep.
operations. But you're right about something. So I've been in DC, I've worked there. I've been in tunnels in the basements of certain buildings. And, I've always pondered how many times Obama's entering the White House through tunnels and systems unbeknownst to the cameras on the ground level, right? Above ground level. And so this is very serious because then our government's not functioning the way the government's supposed to be functioning. And all of the LGBTQ, the race baiting, that is a brilliant, by the way, it's a distraction, right? Is to divide. And if
Yes.
they can keep Americans divided on issues. And I'm going to pull in the CRT at school, all of these things with the school system, parents. These are very important issues, the religious issues, right? But they're not the head of the snake. They're not what's really ultimately going on behind the scenes that is going to be the number one thing that, oh my God, this is what's going to topple the United States. Those things are to keep people arguing, distracted, so they can continue to build on the plans that they have. And what is those plans? Conspiracy theory, by the way, that's created by the CIA. And if you trust the CIA, then let's just go with whatever conspiracy theory, right? Really, a conspiracy theory, it's either going to be proven truthful or false. So
Right.
you're going to be a liar, or it's going to come up to be, it's a factual, truthful thing that we're putting out there. And I can tell you, in the last 4 years, 5 years, 90% of all of those conspiracy theorists have been proven true. The government is not our friend right now, and they are actively working behind the scenes to completely crumble the Constitution. They said it was an old document. It needs to be rewritten. And why? Here's the why. And I'm going to lay out, I did a 25-page report on all of the camps that are placed throughout Latin America, Caribbean, Canada, Europe, and the United States of America since 2020. It's unprecedented. And we're going to break that down in a few minutes. And then I did a deep dive in studying in China, Iran, and Russia and what they've been doing.
I want to go back. I want to go back to the camps for a second, Christie. Are these planned camps or camps that have been built now? And when you say camps, are you talking about detention centers? Are you talking about places to house illegal foreign nationals? Or, God forbid, are we now talking about people or camps that would house Americans, much like the Japanese were housed in America before during the war?
All of the above. When I looked at how many facilities are laid out there, and I'm going to send you this brief so your listeners, if they ask for it, you'll have it in your hand. It's also on my LinkedIn page. I wrote an article, and I laid it out there, and I name all of the cities, the facilities, what they're used for, how many migrants are actually in there. We're going to call them migrants for this program. They're illegals. And I did a military briefing on all of the processing and housing facilities, both by the NGOs, the private sector, and also FEMA, DHS, and other entities.
Okay.
When you look at this, it's staggering. It's staggering. And then I did a look at how many facilities are they planning. So in 2024, they're planning an unprecedented amount of facilities as well, not just on our soil in the United States, but all over the United States. Well, when I see something like this, I broke down the military implications of this, and I made a lot of notes so I could, because I wanted to make sure that I didn't skip a beat or miss anything when you and I talked. You're talking about United States capacity. And I believe these numbers are way under, and these aren't my numbers. This is the federal government's numbers. Capacity, 39,400 migrants. Key locations, New York, New Jersey, Texas, Arizona, California. Facility types, hotels, military barracks. Do you know that they're using military barracks to house illegals?
Yeah, I know they're doing that, and they're even doing that in New Jersey right now.
Well, they've been doing this actually since 2 weeks into the Biden administration. I have the proof that this was premeditated before Biden even took the oath of office, because I was involved in a little town called Alma, Michigan, because a nursing home facility had to send out a 90-day letter in December to displace those individuals who lived in that nursing home
Hmm.
so they could turn their facility, because it had to get rezoned. And so they had to displace them. And this was December. This was the beginning, mid-December, before Biden took office. And they sent the letters out because they were turning this facility into a UAC housing facility, unaccompanied minor
Oh,
housing
God.
facility. I've got so much proof that this is premeditated. So then you look at Latin America and the Caribbean. You've got Mexico, Panama, Honduras, Guatemala, El Salvador, Aruba, Bahamas, Bolivia, Belize, Nicaragua, Canada, Toronto, Vancouver, Montreal, Calgary. These are shelters, temporary housing, processing centers, detention centers are being used. Temporary soft tents are being put up, which I call the military style in Eagle Pass that we
Right.
experienced a couple years ago. UK, Ireland, Spain, Germany, France, Italy, Greece, they call them reception centers, informal settlements, hotels, converted buildings. So the list goes on and on
Now,
and on.
who is building the bases? We know in the United States, our own government is facilitating this stuff. Say there's a base in Belize being built. Who's building that? Is it the government of Belize, or is it an outside player that's coming into these countries?
Great question. So the United Nations,
Uh-oh.
the
I was
United
afraid of
Nations,
that.
and via the NGOs. The NGOs are one of the greatest threats to freedom.
Yep.
Uh, if you're giving money to any Catholic, any charity, I'm going to just blanket this right now. Bethany Christian Services, Catholic Charities, the Catholic Church, the Mormons, Red Cross, Salvation Army, United Way. There's a huge list. I'm going to actually put the list out there. It's going to take me a little bit time because there's so many of them and so many that have popped up
Hmm.
underneath an umbrella to an umbrella to an umbrella corporation because they're burying this stuff to the tune of $2 trillion.
And it's a money laundering machine. It's a great way. And the minute you say NGO in a country, it's hands off because we immediately think we've been programmed, and this is through our education system. We've been programmed to think that anything that has a red cross on it is good. If you're there handing out rice, then you must be part of a good organization. If you're there building a well, you must be part of a good organization. And the bad people, the globalist and people that want to take down countries and destroy people, they have used these NGOs as the greatest cover ever from Haiti to the Middle East. Because
I'm going to go one
as you
step
know,
further.
and governments, and the UN shames governments into giving to these NGOs. Like there's NGOs in Ukraine now, as you know, South America.
Well, I want you to think about this, Ken, and I've got two examples I'm going to show you of proof again that it's money laundering and paying off governments. This is corrupt, and the public-private partnership with these NGOs no taxpayer-funded dollars, not one dime from a federal government should be going to one NGO, right? Separation of church and state. They love to say that, but they use them to launder money and to pay off governments. For example, I'm going to give you two right now. There was a whistleblower and he has photographs, and I've personally seen these photographs of the Red Cross. He was in the banking industry and he helped move money. They discovered a pallet that it was the Red Cross, that the Red Cross had in tune of over $300 million. Second scenario, somebody I work very, very, very closely with, and I cannot say this individual's name, was in Africa on doing some business. One of the members of this African country, he was a minister. He intercepted over $100 million from the Red Cross. Now, why are we not securing that? And it's cash, by the way. Why are we moving $100 million on a pallet of cash into the country of Africa? Well, I can tell you, my friend, it was supposed to be for Feed the Children, by the way. Feed the children. It's always under something with the children.
It's always the children.
And so why are we moving $100 million on a pallet of cash for Feed the Children into Africa, knowing that that's a volatile country and that more than likely that money is going to be given to the wrong individuals in the wrong hands and not traceable? And now this person has $100 million. Well, I'm going to tell you why. In the mafia world, we would say that that's a that's how you launder and pay off bribes, right? To do some kind of bidding. And we know that Africa, in this particular strategic location, has incredible minerals and gold and richness. So I would like to know why our three-letter agencies aren't following and investigating stuff like that. Because if I know about it, I promise you. And what I'm going to lay out in a little bit on this show about China and Iran and Russia and Latin America, they know about this. Christopher Wray even knows about this.
Oh, so, don't even mention his name. It makes me sick to my stomach why he isn't in jail yet.
Well, you know what? I have to say one thing. I'm not a fan of Christopher Wray's, but I will tell you this. This is quote unquote from his words. And if this is coming from Christopher Wray, who I believe is undermining the sovereignty of the United States, and this is what he's saying about China, your listeners in America better they better sit up and get that hair standing up. Counterintelligence and economic espionage efforts emanating from government of China and the CCP are a grave threat. Grave means that's it, death threat. They are a death threat to the economic well-being and values of the United States of America. Countering this threat is the FBI's top counterintelligence priority. That's from Christopher Wray on the FBI's website currently right now, Ken.
I don't know. I just think I have such little faith in our DOJ and our FBI and our CIA because I think they're focused on Biden's enemies and people that push back on globalism and people that question illegal elections. I think that again, like you said, if you know this, there's so many of us out there that are doing independent research. We're reading the myriad of books that are out that have exposed so much. Look at the Hunter Biden laptop. Look at the stuff on that laptop that pretty much says Joe Biden sold our country out. Milley sold our country out with China. It's interesting. Have you been on Bannon's show yet?
I have not. Love to. I would love to.
But it's interesting
about. A long time ago, I was on the border.
Yeah, the CCP thing. Steve Bannon has been on this CCP road for a long time. He exposed this. He always believed that communist China was the biggest threat for so many different reasons. And I think one of the biggest reasons is so many of our men and women in our government that took an oath on the Bible to protect us and our Constitution, they're in China's pocket. Republicans and Democrats. I think that China has a lot of pull. Is your microphone still on?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I thought it jumped off for a second. So I want to go back to I heard a report about a contract for camps being built in all 50 states. It's a current contract that you saw eyes on, and I heard a number of $28 million per camp, and that these could potentially be detention camps for people in the United States that don't play along with all this new crap that's coming down the pike. Can you expand on that?
Yeah. So in the government contracting world, contracts are put out for bid, and you can't the everyday average person can't just go and access these contracts. You have to have the means and the approvals to get on these, to look at these. So there was it's an IDIQ. So
and what does IDIQ mean?
So IDIQ is basically, it's an indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity.
Okay.
Request for information. Sometimes they're RFI, sometimes are RFPs, requests for proposal. So this particular contract. So when I was looking at some contracts that were being put out for bid recently, and this is, by the way, recent. We're talking in the last month and a half that this
Wow.
contract put out.
Okay.
One or two, three, four states for certain things, it doesn't really kind of set off red bells, right? Flags. But when you look at how they're writing this, so this particular proposal, it was very clever. They said housekeeping slash guard services. And these are armed guard services, by the way, not just guard services. And then when I started looking at how they broke this contract out for bid with the private sector, is they broke it down, and I started looking at it, I'm like, this pretty much covers almost every single state, over 48 states in the United States. Why would you need housekeeping and guard services by FEMA, which, by the way, I started looking a little bit deeper. This is actually a DHS contract, and they're using FEMA as the umbrella. So DHS, it's a Department of Homeland Security put out contract that they're the ones who are funneling the money to FEMA and then executing on this contract. So I'm going to read you. FEMA is seeking operations support for security guard contractors that utilize fully qualified DOL Category 27102, Guard 2 Security Services, and Guard 2 EOS. Basically, that's just basically armed. You have to have certain skill sets, you have to have certain qualifications, your guards have to have certain amount of experience, etc.
Training levels.
Training levels. These services are required across various security posts and activities to ensure the safety and security of FEMA facilities and operations. The contract is structured as an IDIQ and a request for information. The initial contract term is for 5 years with a total value of $29 million, basically per contract over the 5-year period of time. And it includes an option to extend.
Oh, they always do, don't they?
Yeah. So I'm just going to really quick, key security services and responsibilities. Guard post static sites. Purpose, maintain consistent security presence at designated locations. Their responsibilities are monitoring and securing entry and exit points, ensuring unauthorized individuals do not gain access, reporting suspicious activities. Access, egress control. Purpose, manage and monitor the flow of individuals entering and leaving the facilities. Responsibilities, checking identification, verifying credentials, controlling access to restricted areas, logging entry and exit times. Qualifications, we won't get into that. Security screening. Purpose, ensure the individuals entering the premises do not pose a security threat. Responsibilities, conducting searches of persons and belongings. Where's the rest of it?
And this has nothing to do with the Department of Corrections or the prison infrastructure. This is coming out of DHS and FEMA?
Yeah, and when you look at FEMA and DHS, well, they already have all of these camps and facilities everywhere. So when I was looking at this, so it does sound like a prison, right? It sounds like they're setting up.
Well, the whole thing sounds like, if they were building new prisons
all over the country. But this is what was alarming to me. So when I started looking at that, I want you to see this list. And again, this will be put up there. I'm going to read this.
Oh, wow. That's most of the states.
Other states, FEMA, DHS out for bid.
Oh, my.
You can get this information. It's very hard to find, but you can get this. So this isn't, by the way, this was countered. I had this run through a database to check again, to make sure that I saw that this correctly, that this FEMA and DHS, Alabama, Mississippi, Nevada, Colorado, Montana, Wyoming, Utah, Idaho, New Hampshire, Delaware, Oregon, Washington, new temporary processing facility, North Dakota, plans for new facilities, South Dakota, considering a new center, Nebraska, developing new migrant housing, Kansas, new operational sites, Oklahoma, expanding existing facilities, Iowa, plans for new processing centers, Minnesota, expanding support services, Wisconsin, developing new housing facilities. Arkansas, new centers being considered. Louisiana, expanding current facilities. Tennessee, new shelters and support centers. Kentucky, plans for new migrant housing. Ohio, developing new facilities. Indiana, expanding current support services. South Carolina, new processing centers. North Carolina, expanding migrant facilities. Maine, considering new operational sites. Vermont, developing new housing and support services. Connecticut, new processing centers planned. Rhode Island, expanding current facilities. Maryland, developing new centers. Massachusetts, expanding migrant housing and support services. West Virginia, new operational sites. Mississippi, new facilities under discussion. Nevada, expansion being planned. So as you can see,
this is the Biden administration, and our tax dollars, it's not going to strengthen and expand the border wall, the border patrol, securing the border. We're actually accommodating the people invading our country, because they're literally saying more migrant housing. They've actually said it in there, so it's not just.
No.
So wow.
Virginia, Florida, Georgia, Illinois, all of them have. If you think you have a red governor state, make no mistake, my friend.
Well, I think that's the
I would
greatest.
like to know why DeSantis is allowing this. Why is the state of Texas allowing this? Why is the governor of Virginia allowing this? Why? If you start, so total states with facilities currently, this is current America, 38 states have existing or expanding migrant processing and housing facilities. There are ongoing plans to potentially extend these facilities to all 50 states, as indicated by federal and local government initiatives. This includes facilities for housing criminal illegals, unaccompanied children, and other migrants. When all existing and planned facilities are operational, 48 states in the U.S. will have migrant processing and housing facilities. Additionally, all these facilities will have guard services to ensure security and protection.
So, of course, it's obviously a big money grab as well. But so I think it's evident that Republicans and Democrats really aren't planning on securing the border and deporting anybody. They're planning on further accommodating illegal foreign nationals that are invading our country. That's what it sounds like to me. If you're building, you're letting out criminals all over the country in blue states. You're letting out criminals. You're decriminalizing different crimes, and you're bumping felonies down to misdemeanors, unless it's Trump. Then you bump it up.
Well, Ken, I did an analysis of migrant processing and housing facilities outside the United States. And by the way, this, I want everybody to understand, this is not from way in the past. These numbers are, and everything I'm telling you in this report is 2020 to 2024. Central America, Panama, Honduras, Guatemala. I'm talking every single Latin American country. And then you've got the Bahamas, Aruba, Barbados, Belize, Cuba, Curacao, Dominican Republic, Guyana, El Salvador, Colombia, Brazil, Peru, Ecuador, Mexico, England, Scotland. I mean, I can sit here and go on and on and on and on about every single. Now, ironically, though, you really don't have any of this in the Middle East. They're not housing them in these other, Russia or China, by the way.
Right.
So when you look at NGO facilities, U.S. Committee for Refugees and Immigrants, the USCRI, horrible organization, stealing your taxpayer-funded dollars and facilitating illegals and terrorists to come into our country. Erie, Pennsylvania, Washington, D.C., Chicago, Dallas, Dallas, Texas, Los Angeles, California, private facilities, Core Civic and GEO Group, Stewart Detention Center in Georgia, Adelanto Ice Processing Center, Aurora Ice Processing Center, California and Colorado. This is so detailed. And then I broke it down to new and planned facilities in Guatemala and Colombia, in Central and South America. Why do we need to further expand? And I'm going to talk about that and what I believe is part of all of this.
Well, it does. It certainly has a globalist feel to it because the tentacles are everywhere. My concern is what's happening to our regular penitentiaries? Don't we have prisons and penitentiaries? And what do we do with the 1 million, give or take, American prisoners that we need to house and have to do their sentence and everything? I mean, it sounds like the illegal foreign nationals have literally overwhelmed every single system we have, from schools to prisons to medical to aid to subsidies. It sounds like a coordinated effort to bring this country to its knees. And I don't think that sounds conspiratorial. It sounds like the best plan to take out the top country from within. And we're helping them do it because I'm sure there's some people in Washington that know, if I can get a piece of this 48 state contract, I can make some great bank.
We're talking trillions of dollars in contracts being handed out like candy
Mm.
over the last 4 years. Uh, you made a good point because I've been talking about this for a very long time. This is a military operation, Ken. Make no mistake. Anybody who has ever been in any kind of private sector or military sector who understands military strategy, how do you topple a country? Our foreign enemies and adversaries have said this time and time again after decades, and it's been on the record. America will never fall from an outside source. You have to infiltrate from the interior and corrode like a Trojan horse, right? You plant the spies, you plant the individuals, you plant the Manchurian candidates, and this has been methodically done over the last 50 plus years. We already have the parallel government in place. It's been in place. It started in 1971. And this is what I talk about, because everyone's like, well, how in the world is this globalist society going to happen? How would this happen? Why would they give up the sovereignty and their power as the president or a prime minister, etc.? It's because it's already been done. These all individuals, they all sit at the table. Think about, I always like to go back to like the Knights of the Round Table, right? You go to the United Nations. You have this big building. I've spoke at the United Nations twice last year. And it's a coming together of world leaders in a building to discuss how they're going to maneuver, whether it's the financials, the military, whatever, right? On a large scale, on a global scale. You've got the World Economic Forum, which was created in 1971. Think of the World Economic Forum as the White House. This is how I like to layman's terms, right?
Well, I think it is under this president.
Yeah, and then you look at NATO. NATO would be our military might. The IMF would be the banking system. The
And
WHO
we
would,
don't need any of this. This is the thing that
no, we don't. But
people
that's the
people
parallel government.
exactly. And this is what frustrates me because we're just pumping out a new generation that's educated to believe that well, the United Nations is good and we have to have it in New York. And we have to do what the World Health Organization says. And the World Economic Forum, they care about, the price of our beef. I don't understand when this break took place from sovereign nation and borders and languages and cultures to we have to play along with the rest of the world. In many cases, they're failing. But this is where we are. You were talking about the parallel government. For years, we've tolerated and allowed people in our government that hate our government. We've allowed so many people to represent the people that hate the people. They hate America. I mean, Obama, he has made so many remarks about the Constitution, transforming America. Look at what they call the founders of the country. Look at what they call the people that signed the Declaration of Independence. That I think this, and this is way off topic, but I always tell people this when I speak. Look at the people that the Democrats make heroes. There's a bronze statue of George Floyd in Minneapolis. There's a bronze statue of a convicted felon and they're taking down the statues of people that signed the documents that built this country. And if that isn't messed up on an Independence Day weekend, I don't know what is. So what is the solution at this point?
Well, Ken, they want to if you erase history in the foundation of the country, you live on quicksand. And they want quicksand, right? They don't want this next generation populace to understand the greatness of this country. And with the small flaws she has, she's still the greatest country. So they have to rewrite the history. They have to take down the statues. That's what Stalin did. That's what Mao did. That's what Hitler did.
ISIS does it.
ISIS does it. And so you look at who they also put in power as the head of the United Nations. You look at who's installed. This is a Chinese, Muslim, communist, Marxist individuals in the parallel government. Think about this. People really need to stop being so drawn in to the scent, which is social media, propaganda, and psychological warfare. You have to start thinking for yourself. And we really do need to, grandmas and grandpas out there, I'm going to give you something that you can do. You need to sit down with your grandchildren and your children, and you need to open up two things. You need to open up, well, three things: the Bible, the Constitution, and you need to tell the stories of how this country became great. And you need to fight back against the education system, because they've used the education system as the greatest propaganda machine and brainwashing machine ever, period, on the face of the earth. And it's brilliant. And they've infiltrated all of that. If I were somebody, I would never have my children go to a public school. But I'm going to tell you, I want to read and I did this potential repurposing use for all of these camps that I just laid out. Then I'm going to give you the solution, because there is a solution. I always love hope. And on another day, I'd like to come in on really deep dive on China. China is the greatest threat the United States
Definitely. Agreed.
ever faced.
Yes.
I have done again, go to LinkedIn. My LinkedIn, I've wrote some articles on this. It is spot on. And I've done a deep dive. Please go get a hold of this report and share the heck out of it with everybody. So historical context, and this again is a briefing that I've done in an article I wrote. During World War II, Nazi Germany effectively repurposed existing infrastructure for military and concentration camp purposes, demonstrating the strategic utility of large-scale facilities for controlling populations. The parallels with current migrant facilities suggests potential uses that could pose risk to civilian populations. Potential repurposing uses can: detention and internment camps. Facilities could be converted into secure sites for detaining large groups of people, including political dissidents, ethnic minorities, or other targeted groups. 2, military barracks. These sites can be adapted for housing military personnel, serving as training grounds or staging areas for operation. How many military-aged men have flooded the borders from the PLA army to Russia, military, etc.? And by the way, they're housing some of them on where?
Military bases. Yeah.
3, logistics hubs, centralized locations for managing supply chains, distributing resources, and coordinating large-scale military civil defense operations. So think about San Francisco, New York, New Jersey, Virginia, strategic ports that these migrant facilities are being placed at. People need to start thinking from a not everybody does. I think from a strategic military perspective. I am looking at this and going, look at the logistical hubs, Texas even.
Geographically, look at all the ports Texas has. Look at how much coastline these states have, in addition to clear air paths and clear airways to places in South America. I wanted to ask you too, I keep hearing, and it keeps getting confirmed, that a lot of these countries south of the border, Venezuela in particular, Guatemala, they're just letting their prisoners out because they want to make their country a little safer. So they're saying to the prisoners, we'll let you out of prison, just go to America because it's easy to get in.
Well, I mean, that's been going on for since Biden. That's not new. That's not new information. That this has been going on. These are the people who have been flooding our country.
But why do
I'm
what do we
going
have
deeper.
what do we have to do? And I know this is so frustrating, this question. What has to happen before more Americans that are at the beach today, uh, doing the barbecue, cooking out on their boat, what has to happen before they go, holy crud, this is bad? What has to happen? Does it have to just escalate to a level of violence that is so third world country that people are now awake? Because, we've had this conversation before, and the border situation has been going on for years. That, we have 35 major gangs from other countries in our country. There's like 13 in Chicago. And the denial of this is what's frustrating. And part of our government does. There's some people fighting in Washington. You probably know them. Some of them are on the Freedom Caucus. There are some real patriots in Washington. But unfortunately, most are not. Most are not going to do anything. And what I worry about, to be extremely candid, is, let's say we, the people, want to take action. I think our government would go after us before they went after the illegal foreign nationals. That's what worries me. I don't trust the FBI or the DOJ to have my back. They're busy having the back of people that are invading our country. Am I wrong?
So we're going to have multiple terrorist attacks on our soil. Unfortunately, soft targets are going to be hit.
Well, that wasn't the answer I wanted.
Well, I know, but I have to be honest.
Thanks for cheering me up.
For the American people, unfortunately, October 7th, that happened in Israel, we will have soft targets hit here in the United States.
That wouldn't surprise me.
We have way too many terrorists who are in this. We have cells, and I can name several of the states.
Yeah, more now than ever. And there's been I was listening to, I don't know if you've ever crossed paths with Sarah Adams, former CIA targeter, but she said since Biden basically gave up Afghanistan, there's 30 training bases in Afghanistan, and they've managed to pull the most unlikely group of terrorists, and all the terrorists are getting along, and they're all shipping them over here because it's so easy to get in. So the irony is, after 20 years, the global war on terror, the GWAT, since 9/11, we have more Al-Qaeda and Taliban and ISIS members, bona fide members, in our country now than we had 15, 20 years ago. So that, I don't even know how you want to do that.
Well, we also have Hamas, Iran's Revolutionary Guard, and Hezbollah in here. So Venezuela is an interesting country, and then I'll finish, and I'm going to try to break down the statement you made. So Venezuela is a conduit for Iran, and they're a puppet. China also uses them. So in 2008, 2009, during the Obama years, Iran started flying from Tehran into Caracas, Venezuela.
Okay.
They wash passports in Venezuela. So the Maduro regime takes basically a wash passport of somebody from a special interest country, which is basically a terrorist country. They will wash their passports, give them a passport saying that they're Venezuelan citizens, erase their identity, give them new identity. They speak Spanish. They learn to speak Spanish. They shave their beards. Typically, how you can tell those who are in law enforcement or military, you can understand dialects. And that's kind of how one way that you can separate them, special interests, tangos, basically. And so they're already here, and they're here on mass scale. Plus you sprinkle in the PLA and the Russians and other players, right? And the transcriminal organizations, which are the cartels. China and Iran have been working with the cartels now. They've bolstered their relationship over the course of the last 2.5 years. We've identified training camps in Mexico, Colombia. We know where they are, the 25 miles across the border of Texas. We've got ISIS and Iran's Revolutionary Guard training. This is very serious. By the way, also in Canada, Canada's being utilized, the Caribbean. And so that's a show for another day. We are surrounded and we are being like a boa constrictor, inside and out, squeezed, from a dangerous, very dangerous perspective. And America isn't unfortunately going to know what's going to hit them because, again, we're so busy trying to just live our lives, go to work, raise our children. We're oblivious because we don't have news outlets for the most part on secular TV that are
Right.
doing the job, right? They don't report on any of the dangers that are surrounding. We have ICBM missile silo locations in Cuba, Barbados, and in Argentina, and in Venezuela and Peru. We have a $3 billion military base, operational port being built by China to house submarines and military capabilities, one in Jamaica. So I could get really deep into the weeds of some serious military operations that are going on. But the bottom line is this, you know, all of these detention facilities that are being built, interrogation intelligence centers, they can be used, quarantine and health control centers. The WHO, we just signed the WHO treaty. And in that WHO, everyone's like, oh, it's dead. It wasn't dead.
No, it was
And
never dead. They just did that as a, yep,
correct.
distraction.
So that quarantine and health control centers, well, all of these all over the world, civilian control centers. I could go on, authoritarian control, human rights violations and social unrest, geopolitical instability, migration as a weapon. This is a weapon. Migration, illegal migration is a weapon, a military strategic weapon. This is purposeful. This is planned. This is a military operation by everybody, our own government, the White House. This is treason, America. On 4th of July weekend, when our founding fathers signed the beautiful document, the Declaration of Independence, they signed it against a totalitarian government. They signed it knowing that they would sacrifice possibly their lives, their fortune, their good name, their reputation, their families.
They did.
That's what this is about. We now have a government who is committing treason. I'm flat out saying it. Go look at what treason is.
By definition, Biden has been a dictator, by definition, probably since his first week in office when he started blowing up the wall stuff, when he started signing off on it. And the other part of it is, and again, I don't fault hardworking men and women who don't have the time because they're trying to figure out, do I buy milk or do I buy eggs this week? I fault our media, which is just a dumpster fire because most of them are lazy liars. And now we have to go to podcasts. We have to go to sources. We have to go to citizen journalists like ourselves. We have to go to people just trying to get to the truth. If you look at all the things the media, it's right in their face. All these major networks have all this access. They have all the credentials. I was watching one of your reports from, I guess it was Eagle Pass, Texas, some of the great video you've done. And for people that don't know, Christie is one of the few Americans who has traveled the entire 2,000 miles of our southern border and hundreds of miles of our northern border. If you're wondering where so much of this expertise comes from, she's boots on the ground. We have presidents and senators that have never been to the invasion point of this country. But it's frustrating because it's so easy to be sucked in by the calm of the media. The media is just never, ever, ever breaking a story. They don't break stories. Have you noticed that? Every story that gets broken is online. It's by someone like yourself. It's on a Tucker Carlson. It's on a Cheryl Atkinson. It's on something. And then a lot of times the media will even pull stuff from it. But my concern is 5 months to the election. Care to make a prediction? I know I'm putting you on the spot.
I can tell you we're going to have serious unrest and chaos. Make no mistake. They're not going to go down fighting. There's plan B, C, and D.
I think they're planning it. I think they're planning to
I predict possible martial law. And the only way that you can do that is terrorist activity, multiple targets hit, civil unrest, clashes of the illegals with the inner city communities. You're already starting to see that in Chicago. It's going to be a mess between now and the election. It's going to be literally the wild, wild west, and all bets are off. Anything's going to go. I would not put it past. There's no scenario at this point that I would say is off the table because they're so desperate, because their plans, because they're so arrogant. They actually did expose themselves, I believe, a little bit too soon, and they got kind of smug and a little bit more arrogant. What can we do? Well, I think we've got like 100 tickets left. Me and my team aren't making money off of this. I want to be very clear. I've put my own personal wealth and money up, and I'm not a wealthy person. I walked away from a lucrative career. I stepped down as CEO of a company. I worked in DC for over 25 years. So I have a different lens. And my team are incredible. They have very special skill sets. I work with past Border Patrol supervisors. I work with sheriffs, deputy sheriffs. I work with special operations guys. I work with some of the best attorneys in the country. And these guys understand what's at risk for this nation. And we understand the solution isn't in President Trump or a politician. We need to elect President Donald J. Trump. Make no mistake. He's a disruptor. There's where that is. He's a disruptor in the highest levels of the land. He can help the American people do their job that the founding fathers gave us the roadmap to do, but you don't know what to do. I've talked to preppers out there. I've talked to all these people. And if you think you're prepared, you're really not, because there's no I in team. You will go down like the Alamo unless you have the cavalry coming to save you. Meetforamerica.org. This, please, meet, MEET, number 4, America.org. Go get your tickets. York, Pennsylvania, the end of August.
Oh, you're going to be in York.
We're going to be in York, Pennsylvania at the end of August. You will not be able to buy tickets last minute. They will be cut off. You will have to check your phone. This is a serious training session. This isn't a Reawaken America tour. This isn't another speech or a CPAC or Unite America or Border 911 event. This is serious, hardcore training with experts who get paid in the past a hell of a lot of money to train military personnel and others on what we're willing to come and train you on how to be in community with one another. Meetforamerica.org. You can also email contact@WFFA@protonmail.com. That's contact at Whiskey Foxtrot Alpha at protonmail.com. And lastly, text the word fight, text fight to 91776. Fight 91776. We are not a tax deductible organization. We're not an NGO. We're not a nonprofit. But 100% of your money that you can donate goes to the fight. It goes to the training. It helps us be in the thick of things, behind enemy lines, undetected, gathering intel and information. That's what your donations, your gifts do. Again, they're not tax deductible. I will not bow down to the IRS and this government. We, as American citizens, must take up the flag. We must take up the Constitution, and we must unite shoulder to shoulder. That's what J6 was about. It wasn't about President Donald J. Trump. It was about you, the American people, never again gathering like that because you scared them. You see, we're powerful when we're united.
That
We're
is true.
when we're not divided. And we can lay down the social issues, the abortion, the CRT, the LGBTQ, all of these other issues. We need to find a common ground, and that is freedom and liberty in the United States and the way of life and the beautiful Constitution. We need to unite on that. And then we can work out and iron out all of the other things. But unless we have a country, unless we have sovereignty, unless we have freedom, all of that is not going to matter, because when the United States of America falls, because she's in the way of the last domino that has to fall for these people to take over, it is the United States of America that is standing, the watchman. When she goes, so goes the world. The American spirit is alive and well, and I have faith in each and every one of you. I have faith that you will put down your social issues. You'll put down right now the distractions, and you will take up a cause, because words don't win wars. People and action win wars and battles. That's what our founding fathers knew and understood. 1776. This is your 1775 moment. Will you take up the charge and defend to protect the United States of America for the future of the next generations?
If people attend the York event, how long is it?
12-hour day.
It's a 12-hour day. Okay. And you show up, and then when you leave, what do you think is the biggest transformation? What is the biggest takeaway?
You will have the tools you need in your tool shed to go back to your community. And by the way, you have homework. We're not just wiping our hands and saying, bye, see you later. You've now become part of a family. And whether you're in Washington State or Oklahoma or New Jersey or Florida or Mississippi, the cavalry is going to come because we have a plan. You see, the enemy plan. You have to have a plan. You have to know who your brother and sisters in arms are. You have to know how to become a certified emergency response team, how to work with your local sheriffs, how to understand lawfare, how to understand tactical civics. You see, everything we do is legal in the constructs of the Constitution. You just aren't enough, right? There's not enough of you. All of those preppers out there. I met one of the guy, and he's like, well, you know, we've got 25 acres and we've got fortified and we've got the bullets and we got the this and we got the food. How many people? I started asking him questions, and he does not have enough. He maybe have enough for 3 to 4 days, like the Alamo, to push back the enemy.
Right.
Friend, you have to be in community. Why do you think the military of the United States has been so strong? Because it's a community, and they are all sing to the same tune. They're brothers in arms, and they know what to do. When one falls, another rises. You know what? The cavalry will be there when you need it most. Meetforamerica.org, meetforamerica.org. And if you want to sponsor us to come, it costs about $60,000 for us to come. And that's covers all of our expense training materials, because there's training materials, there's follow-up. I mean, it's an extensive program. And by the way, normally when we got paid to do this type of training, that we got paid by our federal government, it was $1,500 to $1,800 a head. This is under $199 per person to cover the costs. But if you have somebody who's a sponsor, who has a business, who wants to have us and our team come and underwrite it, God bless you. God bless you. Because we'll come to your city and your town, but it's got to be covered and it's got to be paid for.
What is the minimum amount of people that you would come to a city or town for? I mean, is it
125?
125. So there'll be at least 125 in York, because you're already booked
We
out
cap
there.
it. We cap all of, because like I said, this is serious training. This isn't just a classroom. This is hands-on training. We cap our events at 350 people. That is it. And you're broken up, and it's an incredible day. And you will walk away going, even, you know what, even if you don't want to be part of the community, it is the best thing you can do to help your family plan for natural disasters, hurricanes.
Oh yeah, you can. I mean, it never hurts.
Information.
Yeah, I think that's what's lacking in our school system. What's lacking in our school system, in our colleges, you know, we're learning about, gender studies, and we're not learning how to stop a gaping wound, or how to purify water, or how to contact your attorney about a constitutional violation. We're not learning that. We're not learning anything that we can use.
What do you really need in a bug out bag? I love that bug out bag, because half the crap on the internet, by the way, people don't buy bug out bags on the internet.
Yeah.
Wait till you come to this training, or contact me, contact WFFA at protonmail.com, because we've gone through all of this, and we've actually put what you actually need to survive and to keep your family safe in the actual bug out bags. You're going to learn all of this. You're going to learn exactly what you need for communications, for comms. How do you, if an EMP attack happens, or if our cell towers go down, because make no mistake, there's been cyber attacks going on, and they're literally testing our infrastructure.
Oh, they're not covering it. The news media.
Financial systems. What happens when your bank system goes down? How are you going to feed your family? How are you going to get around? We're going to give you those tools. I'm telling you, this is comprehensive, 12-hour day. And then you'll be part of the family. And after you roll out of this and you get your certification, you're going to also now get a code, and we're going to give you'll have all of these different individuals bi-weekly and monthly communicating with you, talking, giving you updates, giving you new strategies, new everything. So now you're in the insiders club, so to speak.
Mhm.
So this is very, very important. I think this is I personally think that this is the most important thing anybody should be putting money into, more than politicians' pockets, anything else. Meetforamerica.org. I would love to take this on the road, but again, it's
Oh, I
like
hear you.
get people to sponsor or to give money for something that's actually what the solution is to save this country long term. Because the enemy will never stop, Ken. The Marxist, socialist, communists will never, ever stop attacking. We might win this battle, but to win the war, we have to be vigilant, and we have to be constantly on the wall. And this is how you're vigilant and constantly on the wall. Meetforamerica.org, Women Fighting for America, WFFA.win. Donate, get involved, spread the word, find sponsors. I'm telling you guys, I'm not a person who lives in fear, Ken. I've faced cartels, literally, guns drawn at me, knives. I travel with full-time security because I have death threats and bounties on my head. Literally, I have full-time 24-hour security, America. That keeps me safe. But you know what? None of that frightens me. I've ran across the street apprehending Venezuelans and illegals and drug cartel and human smugglers. None of that worries me. I'm not frightened. I'd take a bullet for my country. But what has frightened me more, Ken, is America's crumbling, and it's coming. I have children, I have family, I have friends, and I do not want America to fall on my watch. It'll be damned if I allow that to happen. Where are the rest of you? You have to sacrifice something. What is America's threshold? What is your threshold before you say, we've got to fight the good fight? Evil has been rampant, Ken. This is a battle against good and evil. It's really that simple. And where America goes and how she stands or falls is in the hands of the American people and what they're going to do to actually act, not talk, but act. Meetforamerica.org is action.
Excellent. A great solution, Christie. And I'm eager to have you back. I want to have you back on. We'll deep dive into China. We'll deep dive into some updated stuff. I'm going to put all your links up so people can engage in what you just were sharing, but also follow your videos and some of your other content. I hope you have a meaningful Independence Day weekend, as meaningful as it can be, as we try to get the word out.
1776 was our defining moment in history. The founding fathers drew their sword by a pen. And America, well, you're going to be called soon to draw that sword.
Well, thank you.
Reflect on what it truly means to be an American and the sacrifices of those who went before us, the blood that was shed, the flag that was torn for our safety, security, liberty, and justice. God bless you.
Thanks again for being on the report. Take care.